I decided to visit the village I had lived in from the age of 5 until I was 17, from around 1952 to 1965. I left in a hurry when my family said they were selling up and going to Bristol. I stayed in Cambridge, hanging around like a bad smell. Get off my land. The bus stop is at the Hare and Hounds, the only pub in the village itself. A path leads to the plantation, or Harlton Woods. This is where I spent much of my time in the 1950s. We're going up here now to the old plantation. They call it Halton Woods now, because it's posher. We called it the planting. Up here today, I found the wooded quarry slightly alarming, with the tall trees cracking in the high wind and the birds shrieking. Spooky. In the 1950s, we never found the place frightening. The most alarming event was when Michael Badcock showed us the mosquito bites on his got into trouble for hiding up a tree and swearing at people like a parrot when I was 6. Up there somewhere. Looks like they've taken some of the tree away, so it's harder for people to hide in there and do that. Where are the wildflowers now? The campion, the buttercup, the cowslip, the columbine, the cornflower, the plantain, all gone, all sprayed away by Get Off My Land. Going up now on the outside of the woods. Go along the ridge of the drift, see if we can get a view of Cambridge and the village that I used to do in 1960s and 50s. Don't seem to be much crops this year. Rotten weather. Get off my land. In the old days, rabbits lived down holes like this, but now it would be more likely to be filled with illegal immigrants. Get out of my land. Magnifying the view here, we can see King's College Chapel in Cambridge quite clearly, if we really want to, that is. Lordsbridge Observatory can be clearly seen. In the old days it was a military area. There was a pond there that I fell into one bonfire night. Get off my land. Coming down the hills on the south side of the village, the fields towards Cambridge are scarred with the old coprolite mine workings. Remains of trenches, often flooded and froze over in the winter, which is good for skating and sliding about on. At other times we would hurl cow's muck or pancakes at each other. They were like green meringues, crisp on the outside and soft on the inside. Get off my land. I can see you in the shadows. Both ends of the village are defended by council houses. Other tenants asleep in front of huge plasma TV screens with their blinds pulled tightly shut. In 1957, Mrs. Bass, who lived in one of these houses, grandmother of hapless mosquito-bitten Michael Badcock, shouted after a girl walking past with her nose in the air, "Who does she think she is? A bloomin' Sputnik?" A school friend lived in this house, but moved into Cambridge when his mother came into money. He spent his last week there, following the tractor ploughing the field on the hill behind it. Get off my best kept village. There is just an underwater stump left of this tree now. I once walked onto the thin ice under it, but fell through when a bigger boy decided to do the same. He pulled me out. I could have drowned then. He saved my life, that big boy. Get out of my pond. Nearly got flower bent. The Halton cricket pitch is over there. Once in the very early 1960s I volunteered to play for the Barrington team, who was short of a man. I bowled out 6 of the Halton team for 10 runs, including the farmer. When it was my turn to bat, Farmer Banks took his revenge by skittling me out with a daisy cutter. Get off my cricket pitch. Get off my land. I was 5 years old when I arrived in the front of a furniture van from Beckenham in Kent in 1952. Progressing fast, by the time I was 6, I could swear at people from trees like a parrot, shout "let's rob a bird's nest" at the passing policeman, and race around the garden on my bike to beat a car coming down the road from the direction of Evanston. Fortunately, in the 1950s, cars weren't so quick as the ones now driven through the village by wild-eyed silver foxes. With the result that when the car and I met at the gate, the only treatment I needed was 15 stitches behind my ear and a lasting image of my bike wheel spinning through the air. In a thatched cottage across the road, there were alleged strange goings-on with a man in a wheelchair, his fat golden-haired wife and local kids who used to call and see them. But looking along the road towards Haslingfield, Mrs. Jacobs' post office was on the left, behind the bus stop, and Mr. Saw's garage was a kind of social centre with the Coglans and Kesslers living opposite. Around the corner, past the pond and farmhouse, there was the village school. My mother taught there for a couple of years. Christopher Kester and myself competed to be the worst behaved pupils. The parish council met in the school. My dad was a member for a while, although he'd been a code breaker at Bletchley Park while still a teenager and fluent in Chinese and Japanese. I don't know if he managed to decipher what was said in those meetings.
Get off my porch, get off my land.
At the age of 7, I was sent off to a posh prep day school in Cambridge. From then on, my relationship with Christopher Kester changed from ally to enemy, until, in the early 1960s, we would spend evenings driving round Cambridge Market Square on 2 wheels in his new Mini, eyeing up the birds. When I was 8, we moved 2 doors along the road to Clunch House. Bought by a thrifty grandmother, Clunch House had 2 cottages attached to it and was surrounded by trees. Plenty of new places to climb up and swear at passers-by from. Today, most of the sheds and trees have gone. New houses have been built on the orchard, and it is now possible to stand in the road and see right across the garden and fields to Butler Spinney in the distance. With the trees removed, and in keeping with the conspicuous consumption that is common elsewhere in the village now, the once private and mysterious house looks like it has had a Brazilian. In 1958, my mother died here at the age of 37. Despite her being in agony for several hours and many phone calls, the doctor in nearby Comberton didn't get off his ass until he was too late. In this room, I discovered a box of old 78s of 1930s jazz bought in India in World War II. From then on, I never looked back. Gradually, sitting up trees, swearing like a parrot, became less of an attractive proposition. Mainly because I was too drunk to climb the trees. waiting for the bus back to Cambridge, outside the Hare and Hounds, with the silver foxes still whispering away inside, I watch a fresh group of parrots hopping out of a minibus and running up to the woods for a session. That's what is best about the village of Halton. The woods, or plantation as I knew it, are still there, and Barrington Cement Works just stopped short of munching them away. Will I go back to Harlton again? Well, the countryside is becoming more and more private. I was glared at when I was 6. I was glared at when I was 66. So you decide. Get off my best kept village.
Get off my land.